Steve McQueen could have filled his garage with nothing but Ferraris, and nobody would have blinked. But the first car on this list is something 99% of car guys have never even Googled, and his number one pick makes less horsepower than the van that delivers your Amazon packages. A factory fire wiped out 9 cars, and he survived. One Ferrari has his personal letters stuffed in the paperwork, and a truck in his name clocked 81,000 real miles of desert dirt. This is Steve McQueen's killer car collection, and I promise you, none of it goes where you think it will. Number 15. Seata 208S Spider. Not a Ferrari, not a Porsche. The first car in McQueen's garage is a Seata 208S Spider, and most car guys have never even heard that name before. R.M. Sotheby's documents McQueen's ownership of Seata 208S Spider BS 523, the one he famously badged as his little Ferrari. They explain the Fiat Auto VU 8V V8 connection, and note period performance claims of roughly 115 horsepower and 110 plus miles per hour, which is wild for early 50s street traffic. So why would the biggest movie star on earth open his collection with something nobody recognizes? Because he grabbed what everyone else walked past, and that move tells you more about him than any movie poster ever could. Wait until you see what sat beside it in the garage, because it looks like something your neighbor drives to the grocery store. And the power under its hood makes absolutely no sense for a car that is boring. 14. Hudson Hornet Sedan. Your dad's old work car had more style than this thing, and that was the whole point. R.M. Sotheby's listed the Hudson Hornet Sedan under McQueen's name, packing a 308 cubic inch straight 6 at 170 horsepower, dual Carter carbs, a hydromatic automatic, all on a 124-inch wheelbase that planted it to the road like concrete. Nobody at a red light would give this car a second look. And meanwhile, it could blow past half the sports cars of its era. R.M. said he still owned it when he died in 1980. Full paperwork, 0 gaps. He kept this thing for years while Ferrari sat in the same garage, which means the boring sedan meant something personal to him. 2 entries in, and a pattern is already forming. And it only gets weirder once a 92 horsepower soft-top Chevy enters the picture with his kids' signatures on the paperwork. 13. Chevrolet Styleline Deluxe Convertible. A man who raced Porsches also owned a car your grandma could have driven to bingo night without turning a single head. R.M. Sotheby's documented this Styleline Deluxe with a McQueen Certificate of Authenticity signed by his children, tracing it to the 1984 estate auction at the Imperial Palace. Under the hood, a 92 horsepower 6-cylinder with a column-mounted 3-speed manual, the old 3 on the tree that burned your left leg in traffic. Your friend's scooter probably makes more power than this thing did. So what did a speed addict see in a slow convertible? That question keeps nagging, and the price tag on the entry coming up makes it even stranger, because somebody estimated a car you have never heard of at $40,000 to $60,000. 12. Hudson Wasp Twin H-Power 2-Door Brougham. Try saying that full name without running out of air, and then try understanding why anyone would pay $40,000 to $60,000 for it. The Drive spotted this heading to R.M. Sotheby's Hershey sale as Lot 246, with McQueen's name attached to the estate auction records. But one number in the listing changes everything about how you see this collection. The odometer read 63,537 miles at catalog time. This is not a showpiece behind glass. That is a car someone actually drove to actual places, week after week, year after year. Most celebrity car collections are just expensive furniture, and this mileage proves this was not. A German luxury sedan is about to roll in with a completely different energy, something that looked like it belonged at a board meeting, but could embarrass a sports car on the highway without anyone in the cabin even noticing. 11. Mercedes-Benz 300 SEL 6.3. Imagine pulling up to a stoplight in what looks like a taxi, and then doing 0 to 60 under 7 seconds, while cruising at 130 miles per hour like nothing even happened. R.M. Sotheby's broke down the 300 SEL 6.3 in those exact numbers, and McQueen used this as a regular driver. Reports on his car mention registration slips under Solar Productions and specialist work costing about 125,000 euros through Kienle Automobile Technik. That is more than a lot of people pay for a down payment on a house, poured into a car that looks like an airport rental. He spent that money to keep a weapon that nobody could spot from the outside. And that tells you something about how he moved through the world. The sports car that showed up after this one landed during a very specific window of his life, late enough that the timing alone turns a purchase into something personal. 10. Porsche 911 Turbo. When someone buys their last new car 4 years before they die, that purchase carries weight no spec sheet can measure. The Peterson Automotive Museum put that label on this 911 Turbo, an early model without an intercooler, running a 3.0-liter engine with Bosch K-Jetronic fuel injection. McQueen picked the factory options himself: limited slip differential, sunroof, dual mirrors, all from the order sheet. Early turbos had boost that kicked in with zero warning, the kind of car that punished sloppy driving and rewarded total focus. McQueen chose that personality on purpose. But a bigger question keeps pulling at this whole Porsche chapter. What car got him hooked on the brand to begin with? A trade he made before summer 1959 ended holds that answer. And the thinking behind it tells you exactly how his mind worked around anything with an engine. Real quick, if you're vibing with this list so far, do us a huge favor. Smash that like button and hit subscribe, because it takes 1 second and it helps us bring you more content like this every single week. We are about to get into the craziest part of this collection, and what comes at number 1 is going to change how you see McQueen forever, so stick around. 9. Porsche 356 Speedster. Before the turbo, before the racing years. A 356 Speedster sat in his driveway and started an addiction that never went away. Porsche's own records say McQueen owned one and moved it before summer 1959 ended. Not sold, traded for a more powerful 356A Carrera. That swap happened fast, which tells you something cold about how he operated. The second a car stopped being the sharpest thing in his garage, it was gone. Loving a car meant nothing if a better one existed. And what makes that Carrera trade worth knowing about? Because someone who shared a bed with him every night gave a quote so blunt about his personality that it explains every single purchase on this entire list. And those exact words are about to show up. 8. Porsche 356A Carrera. That Speedster trade reads quick, but slows it down and becomes a full personality profile. Porsche said he swapped the Speedster for a more powerful 356A Carrera without a second thought, and then they dropped the quote that ties the whole collection together. McQueen's first wife, Neil Adams, said he was mad about speed and machines. 6 words, and suddenly 15 cars across 3 decades all make sense at once. He collected based on a physical feeling, not on brand names, not on what other people thought was cool, not on what would look good in a magazine. Once German cars stopped giving him that rush, he needed something built with a completely different attitude. Italian metal gave him that, and the car right around the corner carries a chassis number that collectors trade like a password, with Christie's writing his name directly into the lot title. 7. Ferrari 250 GT/L Lusso. Christie's called this one the ex-Steve McQueen, Ferrari 250 GT/L Lusso, which means his name became part of the car's permanent record. Think about that. The auction house did not just list it under his ownership, they made his identity part of the title. Collectors know this by chassis 4891, 4 digits that bounce around private sales the way people share Wi-Fi codes. R.M. Sotheby's listed the Lusso model with a Colombo V12, making about 240 horsepower and a claimed 150 mph top speed. Fast, rare, and you can trace every owner back to day one with 0 missing links. Most people would call that the peak of any garage and walk away. McQueen went further, and the Ferrari after this one came loaded with factory-build sheets, personal letters, and expert reports thick enough to fill a briefcase. 6. Ferrari 275 GTB/4. R.M. Sotheby's called this originally owned by McQueen and then laid out paperwork that belongs in a courtroom. A factory build sheet, personal letters written by him, and a history report from Ferrari expert Marcel Massini. On top of that, the car earned a Ferrari Classiche Red Book stamp after being restored to his exact setup. Numbers, matching engine and gearbox still in place. That level of record-keeping turns metal and leather into proof that cannot be argued with. Most celebrity collections fall apart the moment you ask for documents, and this gets stronger the deeper you dig. Now take all that care about records and matching parts and throw it against a car that survived a factory fire, which burned most of its siblings off the planet in one night. Because those production numbers are about to make your jaw lock up. 5. Jaguar XKSS Green Rat. Jaguar's official page laid the math out cold. 16 XKSS models built for U.S. export, and then fire tore through the Browns Lane factory on February 12, 1957, destroying the remaining 9 before they ever touched a public road. McQueen is widely associated with an original Jaguar XKSS nicknamed the Green Rat, commonly identified as Chassis XKSS 713, and long-form histories describe him selling it to collector William F. Harrah in the late 1960s. The drive pulled period data showing a 262 horsepower, 3.4-liter inline-six, and a 149 mile-per-hour top speed, with Jaguar's own media backing that same 262 horsepower figure. Fewer than 2 dozen built, fire rate more than half, and the one still standing could outrun almost anything from the same decade. Your average used car lot has more inventory than the total production run of this machine. And right after the rarest car on the list, his next pick crashes back to earth with a thud. A working truck with 81,000 real miles and a dealer invoice that shuts down every fake ownership story on contact. 4. Chevrolet K5 Blazer. One slot after the rarest thing on this list, he kept a truck that smells like dirt and long desert miles when you picture it. Mecum listed the K5 Blazer under McQueen's name with a copy of the original dealer invoice, showing him and Solar Productions as buyer number 1. Mecum caught an odometer reading of 81,609 miles at catalog time, and that number rewrites everything. A man sitting on Ferraris and Jaguars, worth more than most apartments, still stacked 80,000 miles on a Chevy truck, which means this was daily transportation, not decoration. Your car probably has fewer miles on it right now than his Blazer did when they cataloged it decades ago. The truck rolling in behind this takes the daily use concept and drops it into a race so brutal across open desert that it eventually becomes the Baja 1000. 3. Chevrolet C10 Baja Hickey. This was built to take a beating and keep moving, nothing else. Hemmings called it the first GM-backed 4x4 race truck, a Chevrolet pickup put together for the 1968 Mexican 1000 rally, the event that later became the Baja 1000. Mecum listed it as the first Chevy-built Baja 1000 pickup tied straight to McQueen's name. While other famous guys kept clean showroom cars behind ropes, he registered a truck designed to eat sand, rocks, and hundreds of miles of open desert at race speed. Beauty on one shelf, War Machines on the other. That split in his garage tells you he did not collect to impress anyone. The entry after this jams both sides into one vehicle, something that could carry lumber before noon and gap a muscle car at a red light by afternoon, and the badge on its fender explains exactly how. 2. Chevrolet El Camino SS396. Half the country laughed at this thing and called it a confused car truck, and McQueen held on to it for over a decade while everyone cracked jokes. Auctions America's Burbank sale coverage described this as an ex-Steve McQueen 1970 El Camino SS396, delivered new to him, and said he owned it from new until his death in 1980. The same coverage adds, it was believed to have been gifted by GM for promotional reasons, so it's best framed as the auction's documented provenance claim. That 396 badge meant a big block engine known for heavy torque and an exhaust note you could hear a full block away. No European machine in his garage gave him what this did: raw American muscle with a truck bed attached, ready to grab on any random afternoon. And his number 1 pick throws every assumption you built during this entire list straight into a wall, because it makes less power than a modern minivan, and his own quote explains exactly why it won. 1. Land Rover Series 2A. 15 cars deep, and the one sitting at the top breaks every rule you thought this collection followed. Land Rover Monthly got McQueen on record. The minute a picture is over, I run like a thief. I'll put the old lady and the kids in my Land Rover and take off, up into the mountains, out in the desert. I don't want to be bugged by anybody. Rover's North spec sheets listed the Series 2A at 2.25 liters, 2,286 cc, just 77 over 81 horsepower depending on compression. By any speed test, this thing is slow, heavy, and stripped down to bare bones. By every measurement that actually mattered to him, it beat the whole garage because it gave him something no amount of horsepower could ever deliver. A way to disappear completely when the camera stopped rolling. 15 cars, and the one he loved most could barely keep up with a delivery van. Drop your pics in the comments, because I want to know your kind of garage. If you want more stories like this, tap the next video on the screen now.